Breaking news. Collision in the South China Sea. Philippine vessel rammed by Chinese Coast Guard. Tensions skyrocket. Near Second Thomas Shoal. On March 5, 2024, the South China Sea became the stage for a dangerous international drama. A routine resupply mission turned into a high-stakes confrontation. The Philippine supply boat, Uniza May 4, was on a vital mission to deliver food and water to a remote military outpost. Massive Chinese Coast Guard ships shadowed its every move, dwarfing the small Filipino vessel. The scene was a microcosm of a much larger conflict, superpower ambitions clashing with the sovereign rights of a smaller nation. The Filipino crew, aware of the risks, pressed on. This time, the Chinese presence was more aggressive, their maneuvers more reckless. The radio crackled with hostile warnings from the Chinese ships. Every person on that small boat knew they were sailing into a geopolitical storm. The world watched, holding its breath. This was not an abstract dispute. Real people faced real danger. The Uniza May 4 became a symbol of Philippine resolve. The Chinese vessels, the embodiment of Beijing's sweeping claims. The collision was no accident. It was a message that would echo from Manila to Washington. The day began like any other resupply mission. The Uniza May 4, a civilian vessel chartered by the Philippine military, set out for the BRP Sierra Madre. Their cargo, food, water, and letters from home, a lifeline for Marines stationed on the rusting outpost. As they neared Second Thomas Shoal, Chinese Coast Guard and militia ships appeared, forming a menacing blockade. The small Filipino boat was dwarfed by the modern Chinese ships, which maneuvered with practiced aggression. The Chinese vessels closed in, engines churning, intent on stopping the mission. The tension on board was palpable, but the crew stood firm. Over the radio, Chinese ships issued stern warnings, claiming the Filipinos were intruding into Chinese territory, a claim the Philippines rejects. The Filipino captain calmly asserted their right to navigate within their exclusive economic zone. The standoff escalated as Chinese ships crisscrossed the Uniza May 4's path, coming dangerously close. It was a high-stakes game of chicken on the high seas. The Filipino crew, unarmed and surrounded, faced a terrifying reality. Their routine mission had become a perilous gauntlet. The world watched as the situation teetered on the edge of disaster. To understand the chaos, you must know the story of the BRP Sierra Madre. Once a U.S. Navy ship, it was intentionally grounded on Second Thomas Shoal in 1999, becoming a symbol of Philippine sovereignty. The ship is a permanent outpost, manned by a handful of Marines living in harsh, isolated conditions. Decades of exposure have left the ship rusting and decayed, but its presence is crucial. The Sierra Madre is a tripwire. Any attempt to seize it would be a direct attack on the Philippines. The shoal lies well within the Philippines' exclusive economic zone, as defined by international law. For Manila, holding the shoal is about protecting sovereign rights and resources. For China, the ship is an illegal occupation of what it calls Nansha Kundao. Beijing wants it gone, but Manila refuses to budge. The rusting hulk is the front line in the battle for the South China Sea. Life on the BRP Sierra Madre is a daily struggle for survival. The Marines depend entirely on periodic resupply missions for food, water, and medicine. China knows this and works to disrupt every run. What should be routine has become a high-risk confrontation. Filipino sailors and Coast Guard personnel navigate a gauntlet of Chinese ships, facing water cannons and dangerous maneuvers. The psychological toll is immense. Every mission is a gamble. On March 5th, the Uniza May 4 was not looking for a fight, just trying to deliver basic goods. Each successful resupply is a victory, a demonstration of resolve. It tells China and the world, Manila will not be bullied. Every bag of rice that reaches the Sierra Madre is an act of defiance. This is why China is so determined to stop them. The lifeline is under siege. The fate of the shoal hangs in the balance. At the heart of the conflict are competing legal claims. The Philippines' position is grounded in international law. Second Thomas Shoal is within its exclusive economic zone, as defined by UNCLOS. China claims indisputable sovereignty over nearly the entire South China Sea, based on the infamous 9-line. This sweeping claim has no clear basis in modern international law and overlaps with the EEZs of other nations. In 2013, the Philippines took China to arbitration. The 2016 Hague ruling was a resounding victory for Manila, invalidating China's 9-line. The ruling was final and legally binding. China rejected it outright, continuing to build and militarize artificial islands. The March 5th incident is a direct consequence of this defiance. China is using force and intimidation to override the rule of law. The confrontation escalated rapidly. After encirclement and warnings, a China Coast Guard ship blocked the BRP Sindangan, the Filipino escort. The two Coast Guard vessels collided, a dangerous escalation. With the escort occupied, Chinese ships targeted the Uniza May 4. Two China Coast Guard ships unleashed powerful water cannons, shattering the boat's windshield and injuring crew members. The attack was violent, not a warning. Videos show chaos and fear as water blasted through the broken windshield. The Chinese ships targeted the crew and bridge, risking lives. Then, a Chinese vessel cut across the Uniza May 4's path, causing a collision. The battered Filipino boat was forced to turn back. Mission aborted. The message from China was brutally clear. Defiance comes at a price. The world took notice. In the past, incidents like this were shrouded in competing narratives. This time, the Philippines had a new strategy: radical transparency. Journalists and military personnel on board filmed everything: the blockade, the water cannon attack, the collision. Within hours, dramatic footage flooded news networks and social media. The world saw massive Chinese ships bearing down on a small Filipino boat. They saw the water jets smashing into the vessel, the chaos, the fear. The footage cut through propaganda, providing undeniable evidence of China's aggression. Global perception shifted. It was no longer a vague dispute, but a clear case of bullying. The images of the shattered windshield and injured crew humanized the conflict. The Filipino crew became the faces of a nation standing up for its rights. This strategy of documentation is now key to Manila's playbook. By shining a spotlight on Beijing's tactics, the Philippines is winning the battle for international opinion. The footage galvanized support for Manila. It showed the world the truth. China was the aggressor. The power of images changed the narrative. March 5th was not an isolated incident. It was classic cabbage strategy. China surrounds contested areas with layers of ships, fishermen, Coast Guard, and Navy. The goal: overwhelm and intimidate, seizing control without firing a shot. These are gray zone tactics, hostile but just short of war. Water cannons, dangerous maneuvers, and lasers are all part of the playbook. China claims law enforcement, but its actions are militaristic and aggressive. Around Second Thomas Shoal, harassment has escalated from warnings to violence. China is testing limits, hoping to exhaust the Philippines' will. The danger: a miscalculation could spark real conflict. The March 5 incident brought the region dangerously close to that line. The cabbage strategy is a recipe for disaster. The international reaction was swift. The US, Japan, Australia, and the EU condemned China's actions and voiced support for the Philippines. China doubled down, releasing its own edited videos and blaming Manila. But the raw footage had already shaped global opinion. The incident further isolated China diplomatically and strengthened the US-Philippines alliance. The South China Sea is vital. Over a third of global shipping passes through it. An open conflict would devastate the global economy. This is more than a territorial dispute. It's a clash of worldviews. Law versus force. The battered hulls of the Sierra Madre and Uniza May 4 are now symbols of this struggle. The fragile peace in the South China Sea hangs by a thread.